I get Avatar Fire and Ash?
Yeah, in 3D?
3D.
This is the only pure thing in this world. The fire came from the mountain, burnt our forest. I see you.
Damn right you do.
Avatar Fire and Ash is an epic action family drama that is the most epic of all the Avatar films so far, and it's also the least original and probably my lowest ranked Avatar film. With all that being said, I absolutely loved it, and in spite of all that, is the best theatrical experience out of all the films, with the exception being Avatar, just in how new that was, both in this visceral, amazing CGI spectacle. How did they do that in 2009 and it's in 3D? That initial like shock of, whoa, what am I seeing right now? Avatar original has all that, but in terms of what is the most epic of the franchise, that's Avatar Fire and Ash. So basically the film picks up right after The Way of Water, and so much so in fact that I don't think the movie works on its own, which is sort of a negative, because The Way of Water, even though it's, it's a direct sequel obviously to Avatar 2009, but that movie works on its own because there's a big enough time jump, and they explain, you get a good handle of the history there, but you don't even necessarily need to have watched the first one. It does a good job of being a standalone movie, even though it's a sequel, which another example of that Cameron also made is Aliens. That's obviously a sequel. You don't need to have watched the first Alien to really appreciate and love and know what's happening in Aliens. Matter of fact, I personally watched Aliens first. I didn't even know Alien was a thing because I had seen it when I was a kid, and it was just the movie I'd seen first, and I became aware of Alien, but it actually took a long time for me to actually watch the full thing and not just, scenes that I would see on TV shows or trailers or YouTube or whatever. And The Way of Water is just like that. Fire and Ash is not like that. It technically, the story is, visually engaging enough and action-packed with character depth, so you can follow along and be entertained, but it doesn't feel like a standalone movie. You would feel like you're missing something. So the way it starts is basically in the spirit world, which you wouldn't know that initially, whether you've seen the previous one or not. It's until you realize that the person that Loak is with is his older brother, who's obviously not alive anymore because he dies in The Way of Water. So it starts out in the spirit world, which is, again, that would sort of work if you hadn't seen it, but it makes much more sense, obviously, if you have seen The Way of Water and the whole franchise. So not a great way to start to be its own movie, but Avatar is so big that it's assumed there's something wrong with you if you haven't seen the first two. So it can get away with that. If any movie could get away with that, it's the Avatar franchise. So a lot happens, but at the same time, not a lot happens, which is why you have probably seen headlines, or maybe you've seen other people talk about it, or videos, where the plot structure is very similar to The Way of Water. A lot of the same things happen, but that makes more sense when you realize that the movie it's basically the same movie. They just split it into two, Harry Potter, The Deathly Hallows Part 1 and 2 or something. The script was the same script, and they just split it in two movies. Literally just because it's too long. Because, like I said, the movie doesn't really work on its own fully. So it's literally just because you can't release a 6-hour movie, so that's why they did that. And in saying that, there's going to be snarky jokes and comments and, all this stuff. It doesn't matter at the end of the day, because what matters about the Avatar franchise is purely the cinematic experience, the world that it puts you in, period. The story doesn't matter. The characters matter in a sense, but it's literally the fact that it's placing you in this world and things are happening and you're witnessing it, almost like it's VR or something. It's not about, this story being this crazy, unique story, structured weird. It's got chapters and it goes back in time and it's got this weird theme and this no, it's not about that. It's purely about placing you in this world and you eye-gasming at what you're watching because it looks incredible. The Way of Water is incredible looking. Probably second best. Out of everything that has been made, it's second best. First best is Fire and Ash, and as it should be, because it's a couple years on. They've had time to further improve, which is crazy to think, because how much further can they improve it? The CGI is already hard to discern what's real and what's not. Obviously, certain things are more obvious, but it's so good that that little thing in your brain that tells you like CGI, 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 you're watching CGI, that shuts off. And then you see, actual human characters interacting, and there isn't like this obvious, like The Rock from the Mummy Returns or something. It's not obvious. It's weird. It just flows. CGI in this franchise has reached a point where it just flows. I'm at a loss for words because of how, spectacular that is. And it's the only thing that has it to that level in my mind. So basically the same things that happen in The Way of Water happen in this film. Kids get kidnapped over and over again. People get threatened. Prisoners get taken. They escape. They get taken again. They escape. They get taken again. People get spared over and over again, only to come back later. That does happen a lot. I'm not going to deny that. I'm not even going to say that that's like super warranted or the best choice that could be made, but it didn't bother me. And if you are really invested in the movie, I don't really think it should bother you. There's going to be a subset of people that no matter what, they just cannot let it go. I'm too smart to like this. I gotta say I don't like it. And you can not like it. It's not my favorite franchise. It's not my favorite movies, characters, especially from a filmmaker that I love, James Cameron. There's two works that I can think of that I like better, and I think you can figure out what those are, especially since I've said it before. But having said that, I can fully appreciate this franchise, and I, third movie on, fully enjoy it more than I ever have. And that's coming from someone who, thought the first one was groundbreaking, not only in cinema, but my own life. So there isn't really a point to get into much detail on who gets kidnapped, who gets threatened, because it just happens to everyone over and over again, especially the children. Obviously, Spider is important. He's good leverage, and he's like a tool to be used both for Quaritch and Jake Sully, because they both, want him in a sense. So they both use him as leverage for each other. And a new development that happens, which is, major spoiler territory, is that due to Eywa and Sigourney Weaver's character, Kiri, however they say it, Spider, who in The Way of Water was my least favorite character, I like him more in this one. But he's basically allowed to breathe. He gets the Eywa juice in his body, and he can breathe now. And then he even starts weirdly growing the tail out of his neck, which I'm forgetting what is called. And what do you think happens? Yeah, you guessed it. And of course, you have humans trying to colonize this planet, different resources. What do you think they would do if they discovered a human that could breathe the air? Yeah, that's a major thing in the story, as it should be, because it's just logical. And it's revealed that when he can breathe, it's this like symbiote, like a life form, and they are keeping each other alive. And then Spider gets captured, and they try to reverse engineer it. It's never revealed if they actually do that, but it's safe to assume that they will, because it's just more of a threat if humans can breathe on Pandora, right? One of their weaknesses gets relieved, so of course. But what comes from that is the most interesting, especially character-wise, is a logical thing comes up. Well, these humans, they're not going to go away. They're going to keep plundering resources. If they can find out that they can breathe on the planet, they will not stop until they can harness that power so that they can bring more humans and basically overtake the planet and just live there, since Earth is failing. And it's logically brought up by Neytiri first that, well, that's a serious threat. We should just kill him. So they can't do that. And of course, Jake doesn't want to do that. Obviously that's morally wrong. So they don't do that at first, which is what you would expect in a movie like this. But unexpectedly, later on, Jake Sully gets captured, which is pretty cool. And he's put in it's pretty cool in the sense that it's just cool imagery that he's put in this cell, and there's like people taking pictures and videoing him, and it's the traitor. Like, it really makes me think like Avatar 4 and 5, if they involve Earth more, like that would be really cool. New territory for the franchise, since we've never see Earth unless you watch the extended collector's edition. But like to see like the Na'vi interact with more Earth, like literally on Earth or something, I think that would be really cool. But basically, after that experience, Jake says that, you know what, I think you're right, Neytiri. I think this is too big of a threat. I know humans. I used to be one. They will capture him. They will never stop until they capture him. You were right. We should just kill him. Which, from a main character who's like this moral center that the audience is supposed to follow and care for, who's, human, there isn't this thing where you understand, okay, they're Na'vi, they're not human, so they might not exactly have the same morals and stuff like that. Jake isn't like that, so that's actually very powerful, and I really liked that it explored that, and it led to a powerful moment where he leads Spider into the forest to kill him, and then Spider eventually realizes that that's what he's doing, and he heartbreakingly accepts it, and he's asking, like, he's crying and pleading, and then he says, like, okay, I understand why you're doing this. I know I have to go to Eywa now, but do you still love me? Like, it can be seen as corny or something, but if you're invested in the story, it's powerful. There's no way around it. And it got me. I'm not gonna lie, it got me. I teared up at that moment because I was invested in the story, as you should be, to really enjoy this movie. If you just have, I think you know what I'm talking about. There's like a layer that people put between a movie and themselves to not do that. It's understandable in a public setting. You don't want to be watching a movie with friends and family just like, just fully. But it's satisfying to do that. If you give yourself over to the movie to allow it to touch you in that way, if it's done properly, it's very satisfying and it feels good. And the movie does that. If it was just this hollow visual piece and nothing else, it would never come close to that, especially to someone like me, who, yes, I'm a fan, but I'm not an emotional person. I have quite a hard shell, so if that can do that to me, then that's just powerful. And I mainly bring that up to point to that fact that there's more character depth in the third one. That's quite a powerful moment, and there's a couple others. There's that dichotomy between, two father figures, and Spider's in a weird spot where, he it's just an interesting spot to be in, to explore. And Colonel Quaritch is, obviously, he's been the villain, he never dies, which they, funny enough, as they should, mention that, like, how many times have I killed you, because he's literally died twice now. He was saved the second time, but he would have died if he wasn't saved. And this guy just won't die, much like most of the villains. If I was to critique the franchise so far and the third one, it's that wearing that armor for too long, where the villains don't die or go away, it does start to wear on you and get old. And that's from someone that's a fan and wants to like it. And again, that stuff didn't bother me to like say, oh, I don't like it because of that. But I do notice it, and I would hope that in 4 and 5 they stop doing that. Like, I think Quaritch is a good character, and I know what they're trying to do. This like bad guy that, he's got more depth to him. He's not just this evil figure. He's just like, he's got another side to him, and they try to bring that out a couple times in this film, and it's paving the way for him to kind of help them out later on, or to switch sides, or to see the error in his ways and whatever. It's interesting. It's satisfying to watch characters go through journeys like that. So I fully expect that to happen if 4 and 5 do get made. which I'm not against. I would love to see that, especially since I don't want to see him almost get killed or get killed and just keep coming back. Just switch sides already. Like, there's been enough of that. And of course, this movie ends with him potentially dying, but we know he's not, especially since I think he's listed in 4, maybe even 5 as part of the cast. But actually, in this movie, that doesn't matter because you can just die and go to Eywa, and you're there. And that's what happens. There's a scene where we go to Eywa and we basically see all the characters that have died. So it's like, it's just a revolving thing. Nobody ever dies. You just die and go to the spirit world, and this just looks like the same world. And okay, I guess now I can never truly die because I'm a spirit. I'm in this awesome place. Aside from that, the humans are still hunting whale brain goo because it's worth billions of dollars. Got to get that blue goo and those whales. And they still got the same Moby Dick guy with a robot arm. He's still alive. Because again, nobody ever dies in this franchise. And he does eventually get his comeuppance, but he's probably still not dead. We don't actually see him get ripped in half or something, so he's probably not dead. Nobody ever dies. Oh, and Ian Garving, who I thought they've handled awkwardly. That guy just seems really weird when he has an English accent. He switches sides, and which is set up in the first, or the Way of Water, really dumbly by one of his lines, like, I forget what he even says. Who's got the spear now, or something like that? And it's like this horrible. There's a couple bad line readings, both in the Way of Water and in Fire and Ash. Like, there's a couple moments specifically that they should have just cut the line out, which I'm surprised Cameron left in. 2 specifically, that if they would have just cut the line out and just had a reaction, it would have landed way better instead of this dumb line that gets said. Giovanni Ribisi, or however you say his name, Selfridge, he just randomly comes back. I guess we don't need to see him like return on a ship or something. Like, you understand. This is what I'm talking about, where you need to have seen the first 2. Actually, no, I guess that wouldn't matter because you wouldn't even know who that character was. But if you hadn't seen The Way of Water and you just went from Avatar to Fire and Ash, maybe it would be weird that this guy just pops up. But yeah, he just pops up. He wasn't in The Way of Water at all. Or if pretty sure I don't remember seeing him, even like a little cameo or something. Oh no, he was in Colonel Quaritch's like video diary or something, the little exposition that they gave his Navi clone. But that was like a flashback, so he wasn't actually in the movie. But he's back, and he's not talking about unobtainium anymore. He's fully vested in just Spider's lungs. As far as the characters, we basically have the whole gang back again with a couple additions. The most prominent, obviously, is Varang, who's like the evil fire queen Navi, who, let's just say, Neytiri needs to watch out because she's something. She's got that Varang. Yeah. I thought I was attracted to a blue alien, but it's really a charcoal gray alien with red face paint. That's what I'm really attracted to. Not gonna lie, she had it going on. She knows what she's doing. So that was a welcome addition. Not just because of that, because she was an interesting character who brought like a new dynamic to Navi. There's a few minor characters, but we have David Lewis, who I like that actor. He's just got one of those voices that's like prominent, and he's genuinely good in everything that he does. He has a small role in this, but if you know who he is, he's instantly recognizable and seemed like a good character, although it was short-lived. I have a few critiques, even though I did absolutely love the experience. One is I wouldn't have started the movie the way that it started. Initially, I felt that the movie felt a little cheesy or corny, or maybe my mind was just being poisoned by some reviews, but it came across that way initially, like melodramatic or something. I don't know why, but that I lost that after about 10 minutes. Slightly got brought back when there was a dumb line here and there, or when Sigourney Weaver's character Kiri is performing her thing and she's like, "Oh, Oh, it's a little too sexual. And sometimes I thought her voice was less distracting in The Way of Water. Sometimes I felt her voice was distracting. Like I could hear the older Sigourney through the character, even though she's playing a teenager or whatever. Overall, she did great, but like, it's a couple moments I thought it was like, oh, this is kind of weird. But that's mostly because I know Sigourney Weaver, and I know she's really like 60 years old or something. So we also get our first glimpse at Eywa as Neytiri breaks through because she's been having trouble connecting, and you see this gigantic half of a face that slowly turns, which is a little creepy but interesting. And that kind of stuff is like, you know, another reason I want to see 4 and 5. I want to see where this goes and learn more about all that. Spider, basically one of the 2 good human characters left. Actually, I guess you can count like Norm and the other guy, but they're, you know, barely in the movie, just like The Way of Water. Oh, and Dr. Garvin, he's the new hotness human who is set up in The Way of Water, is paid off with his really lame line. Yeah, that's you don't really care about that, but he is useful in the plot to help out Jake, so that's a thing. But Spider, I thought was a lot better in this movie, just in terms of me liking the character. I will say though, I thought a couple of his performance moments were weak, like really weak. I don't know if that was the character per se, or if it's just his acting. Something was definitely weak about it. But at the same time, he had some very effective moments also. The emotional scene that I mentioned with Jake Sully basically about to sacrifice him for the greater good. His performance was pretty good there, although slightly melodramatic. I think it's mostly just the actor. Not necessarily bad, but weak. When it comes to the critique of the story basically being like The Way of Water all over again, or that it's not original, that it's retreading things, the question you got to ask yourself is, why does that matter? Does it feel like you're being cheated? Does it feel like the story couldn't naturally progress that way, and they're literally just copying and pasting? Does it not feel earned? Because if you can't answer yes to any of those questions, then why does it matter? Especially if you enjoyed the movie that you saw. If those questions poison your mind so much where you can't enjoy it, or people get in your head and you start, you know, oh yeah, it did do the same thing, it's crap, well then I don't know what to do to help you. But we don't know exactly why they went with this path. Why I would assume is that, just like I've mentioned, Avatar is about the cinematic experience being in this world, almost like it's a VR experience. So I feel like the story maybe needs to play out a certain way to fully embrace that. And I only say that because it doesn't bother me. Like, I was thoroughly entertained. I don't feel like I wasted my time, that I was duped. And not only that, I want to see where it goes. So in my mind, that's a success. I don't care if it's not this super analytical piece, groundbreaking cinema, some weird Borgos Lanthimos, whatever, like these artsy fartsy directors who make these kind of weird movies that, sure, maybe they're great acting performances, they're quirky and entertaining because they're so weird. That's great. That's this thing. That, you know, Avatar is its own thing. You can like both of those things. One is a lot more digestible by people, which is why Avatar is way up here in terms of people watching it, and Borgos Lanthimos and those guys are like way down here. Not that they're not they're both talented, just in different arenas. But I will say, someone who knows how to get up here, they can get their stuff seen, whatever they're trying to tell their art, their craft, their story, their theme, whatever they want to get across to way more people, because they're making a movie that people are seeing at this level. You know, billions of dollars, millions of people watching it versus way down here. So whatever you're trying to say, and you're so much better, very few people have actually seen it. So congratulations. People have not seen your movie, but you're praised by the community. Like, what achievement is better in my mind? I would assume more people watching your movie is better. Whatever way that gets achieved, is what it is. I feel like James Cameron knows what he's doing. So if this is what is the movie, that's just the way it is. Like, he knows what he's doing to do what he wants to do, if that makes any sense. But based on the stories that have been told that, you know, are from Cameron himself, that the Avatar 2 script got like 3 pages of notes. Avatar 3 got 2 pages. Avatar 4 was just holy shit. You know, that was the only note. That is really intriguing. I really want to see Avatar 4 because of that. With that being said, yes, there is some clunky, bad dialogue. A couple of moments in particular, a couple said by Spider that I'm just like, if you would have just cut that out and just had Spider react, way better. Way better. But again, I'm not directing this multi-million-dollar crazy technology pioneering performance capture movie. I can only judge so much. And, you know, a couple lines here and there, I'll take that any day for everything else we get that's amazing in the franchise and this movie. And I do feel like a couple of those lines really makes me think of the first one. There's a couple of really distracting lines where you could tell, depending on the right theater, I think the general population who aren't like these cinephiles and critics and filmmakers and genre nerds, just like the general person, they appreciate these weird lines that feel kind of cringy more than other people, including myself. Like the part where in the first one Jake Sully's like, yeah bitch, that's what I'm talking about, or something like that. They feel kind of out of place and like really on the nose sometimes, but those are there because they do get laughs from like the general population, you know, those idiots. I'm just kidding. If you're one of those guys, you're not idiots. A lot of people are stupid out there, but who knows how many, right? Maybe they're watching this video, maybe they're not. Every Avatar film has had those lines where there's just like these kind of out of place, cringy lines, especially the more you watch it, the more cringe they become. The Way of Water has, or Fire and Ash has like 3 or 4 of those, at least, probably more. One in particular, which is mentioned in an article, or I saw it somewhere, where it's like, this is the only blockbuster I've ever seen where the word butthole is used or something. And yeah, that is the case. Those are lines where it's like, just cut that out. You don't even need that line. I don't think it would have any impact if you would have just cut that out. Like, why did you include it? Questions we'll never know the answer to. If I ever met James Cameron, I'd ask him, why did you keep that butthole line in there? Well, the Na'vi have buttholes, and I don't know. Neytiri is awesome and as primal as ever. She's got a nice little arc where she starts out in the beginning as a grieving mother who hates humans with a fury, which, you know, is a thread that's continued, and it comes to a satisfying point, which is why you do these things, right? These emotional character arcs, where when Jake Sully says to her that you were right, I think we need to kill Spider for the greater good. She realizes, like, I don't want this blood on my hands. I even just got emotional just thinking about it, just because it's a powerful theme. It's done very well in the movie, but she doesn't want this blood on her hands. It's the wrong thing to do, so she goes to rush to stop him, but he decides on his own that I just can't do it. I can't do this. Even, you know, if it dooms us all, I can't do it. That alone is a very powerful theme, because it's just a powerful theme. What would you do in that situation? Would you kill your own child or someone you love for the greater good? It's used in The Last of Us. It's used in a lot of things. I think most of us probably couldn't do it. I can straight up say right now, I couldn't do it. I would save my child and let the world burn. I'm just going to be honest. I couldn't do it. If I could spend, you know, an extra day with my kids or my loved ones versus saving the entire world, but they all go away, I would take it, and I think a lot of people would. That's just humankind. That's what makes us interesting, right? Of course, not everyone's like that. If it was Bill Maher, he'd fucking, you know, destroy everyone he knows to save the world, because he's like, this is the logical choice, it's the moral one. I can't do a Bill Maher voice, but that's what Bill Maher would do. So let's not have him. Actually, no, we'd all benefit if it was him. If it was me, you'd all be screwed, like most people. That then leads Neytiri to say, I see you. The all-powerful magical 3 words that Na'vi say to each other to Spider, which, considering her hatred for humans, which she verbally says again in this movie is a powerful moment. She's one of the best characters in the film or the franchise, as a matter of fact, and she sets aside her hate for humans and tells Spider that she cares about him, basically, which is powerful. In terms of more character depth, we have Colonel Quaritch, who is beginning to see things, and Jake has a couple lines to him that is making him question certain things. There's multiple moments where they they at least acknowledge it, but there's like 3 moments where they're awkwardly just there. They had to work together to save Spider, or to save themselves, or to save the kids, which is in Quaritch's eyes is just to save Spider, where they have to work together like 3 different times, and each time Quaritch is like, we're gonna hold hands now, we're gonna give you a fat kiss, so they acknowledge it. But it does happen like 3 times, which at a certain point that does start to wear on you, even as a big fan like myself. So there's that. But again, this is more set up for Quaritch to probably switch sides in 4 and 5. Maybe not even 4 and 5. It might be something where like there's a moment where he needs to sacrifice himself and he chooses to do it to save them, or something like that. Because these characters, that's one of the most satisfying ways they can go out, because it's like this heroic thing. You don't have to deal with the awkwardness afterwards. Like, didn't you do horrible things to us? Now we're just living side by side, which can be interesting drama. With TV shows explore that, The Walking Dead in particular. But most likely that's probably what's going to end up happening with this character. And you kind of want to see that. Like, it is satisfying. It's just the whole thing with Avatar. It's like it has this familiar story structure that works. It's been proven. It's satisfying. And because you kind of know what to expect, and it's not this oddball thing, you can easily follow along. And while you're easily following along, you get to feast on a visual spectacle. The whole point of the Avatar franchise. If you want to boil it down, that's what Avatar is all about. Satisfying humans. Doesn't need to be satisfying them, super brainwave, Jimmy Neutron, Blaine Blast. It's satisfying on a very much like the Na'vi primal level. Something we easily understand. This visual spectacle like we've never seen. We love it, don't we? Isn't that why it's the most successful movie of all time, and The Way of Water is, almost there? My prediction at the end of this is that Fire and Ash will be the least of the 3 in terms of box office, but it's still going to do very well. Probably break $1 billion, but still be less than The Way of Water. For my sake, I really hope it does, because like I've said, I really need to see that. I understand the story is told from essentially Jake's point of view and the Na'vi, but it would be nice to have more humans, like, from their perspective. You do get, there's 4 good humans and like thousands of bad ones if you want to count the extras and the unseen faces, but it would be nice to get more of a human perspective. Like, go back to the human perspective, have characters we can follow that aren't evil, like more discussions to be had about, what's the right thing to do. Just something, like, because it really has gone away from that. I know why, but it would be satisfying to get that back, because we had that in the first one for obvious reasons. So 4 and 5 can introduce more characters that aren't like cardboard cutout villains, or just to fit the agenda of the plot. That would be satisfying. Not even nice, but really satisfying, because obviously you get what it's trying to say. A tendency of humankind to do that, but like, don't you think, like, wouldn't it be satisfying both emotionally and logically to have the humans that don't just, they have all this incredible technology. Maybe Earth is dying, but they've reached this other lush, incredible planet with these, crazy other life forms that are intelligent and spiritual. And it's just like, you don't even care. You're just like, whale brain goo, unobtainium, kill them all, burn them down. It's like, it just seems like there's no thought put into that. It's just like, kill the hostiles, they're in the way. It's like, there's no weight to that decision. It's just like, well, of course it is. They need to add the weight back to the humans. That would be my main critique, I think. Aside from, you know, hopefully enough of a break for Avatar 4 to stand on its own, would be to bring the heart and the depth and the weight back to the humans. And when I say that, I don't even mean just like, you know, the obvious tree hugger people. They're like, stop, don't burn the forest. They're intelligent. But like, just the weight of like what these guys are doing. Not just like the in your face, like this is wrong, like logical conversations, people realizing like this is incredible. Like, can we stop acting like this, nothing is incredible about this planet and it's all about the resources? And again, I understand why that's done. It's to further highlight like humans bad, colonizing bad. But you could add even more weight to that if you added this other layer back into it. So number one critique of mine is that add the weight back to the humans, because it just makes what you're trying to say even more powerful. And again, it's easy to sit back off the couch and critique, you know, what they did in James and Avatar and what James Cameron has done. Try doing it. Try being the guy that is responsible for all that. It ain't easy. So it's like, it's easy to just sit back and talk crap on it and be like, the story's mo. It's incredible. Overall, what they've done, incredible. They've crafted probably the best cinematic experience ever. Dive with me!